It was a quiet Saturday morning, the kind we deserve after an exhaustive week. The coffee in my favorite Turkish still smoked, the sun entered the window and, for the first time in days, I could breathe without haste. My name is Irina, I am 32 years old, and if you think family is synonymous with unconditional support, let me present mine, a true field of manipulations disguised as love. My parents, both in 50, are one of those who really believe that they know what is best for me, better than myself, of course. Control is not a habit for them, it is a lifestyle. And then there is Ksenia, my youngest sister, 26, newlywed and, amazingly, the darling of the family. The one who, since he was born, has never made a mistake, never disappointed, while one is expected only one thing: to open his wallet without complaining whenever the family needs. 3 years ago, after much sweat and economy, I bought a modest little house in Krasnaya Polyana. No luxury, just a refuge in the hills, a place that was just mine. I loved every piece of that corner, even if the Moscow races allowed me to visit him much less than I would like. It was my escape valve of this crazy life. Until, that Saturday, the phone rang. On the screen, the name of Mikhail, my broker, the guy who helped me close the purchase of the property. A serious professional, those in which you are trusting. But his voice sounded strange, almost hesitant. Irina, do I need to ask you something? Are you selling your home in Krasnaya Polyana? My coffee almost ended up in the wrong place. What do you mean, Mikhail? Of course not. He sighed. For it is announced a week ago. All the information beats, even the photos. Only the contact that is not yours is your mother's number. My stomach knotted. Send me the link. While waiting, my mind already anticipated the worst. And when I opened the message, it was like punching the chest. There was my house, exposed in detail that I would never disclose. Worse, in the contact field, my mother's name and phone, as if all that were perfectly normal. I didn't think twice. I called home. My mother's voice, too sweet, has already given me the measure of damage. Daughter, I'm glad you called. Mom, what the hell is this ad from my house for sale? Silence. Then, with a calm that only those who feel unpunished can have, oh, you see? Yes, we put it. My blood froze. You what? We needed to take action, Irina. You would never accept to sell on your own. I was already standing, walking from side to side like a caged animal. Of course I wouldn't accept it. It's my house. She changed the tone, that condescending tone she uses when she thinks she's teaching something obvious. Ksenia is pregnant. She and Nikita need a place to live. The money of her property would give a great entrance to a good apartment. So what? I exploded. This is not my problem. My father took the phone. I hear them whisper before. Irina, you need to think about the family, he said. Remember when we asked for help from Ksenia's wedding? We needed 1 million, and you gave only 100,000. A good sister would have paid everything. My mouth was dry. I had given what I could. And now, besides blaming me, they still wanted to steal my most precious good. This is not help, it's theft. My mother laughed, a loud laugh, as if I had told a joke. Ah, daughter, you're so naive. We have copies of all your documents, signatures, all. Remember? Years taking care of your roles, making power of attorney. It's not difficult. My father added cold. We planned it for a long time, Irina. We know what we do. I hung up. I stayed there, looking at nothing, my hands shaking. They were not kidding. They planned coldly forging my signature, selling my house, and still thought I would swallow it in silence, as I always swallow everything, because family is sacred, because good daughter doesn't argue. The anger was rising, hot and acidic. I always went to V. Family dairy Amma. Ksenia wedding? Call Irina. Debt in the bank? Irina solves. And I solved it because I believed it is done. But that was too much. They weren't asking. They were taking. And the worst, with an arrogant certainty that I would, in the end, accept. It was then that something inside me snapped. If they wanted to sell my house so much, it was. But at my pace, in my rules. I called Mikhail again. Mikhail, about that buyer you mentioned, is he really interested? Much. Looking for something exactly like your property for months. Great. Because I'll sell. And it needs to be fast. Very fast. He was surprised. How fast? As fast as the law allows. If it stumbles to close in a week, I below the price in 300,000 and still give you an extra commission for agility. Are you serious? I've never been so serious. I hung up with a bitter smile. For the first time in years, I was not following their script. I was writing mine. While Mikhail dealt with the buyer, I entered the internet banking and started tidying up the house, literally. First, I revolved all the power of attorney my parents had access. Yes, I had given permission years ago when my father had health problems. My mistake. Then I cancelled automatic mortgage payments. 2 years paying their installments, 60,000 a month, because they were tight. Now they were going to learn what is really tight. The following Sunday, Mikhail called with good news. The buyer, a police major named Andrei Sergeyev, was ready to close. I wanted a quiet place in the mountains and had the money in sight. If you have the documents in order, we enter the deed until Thursday, said Mikhail. Perfect. Let's go. The following days were a whirlwind of bureaucracy, connections, and rush. But on Thursday, everything was signed. My house had a new owner. And I could finally breathe relieved. I chose the right moment. In recent months, I could barely support myself, the more they play the whims of others. But this time, the play was mine. And when they find out, when they realize that the good daughter turned the game, the expression on their face will be worth every second of this battle. Because family is sacred, isn't it? For they learn what is truly sacred, respect. And mine, they just lost forever. The 120,000 of financing not only liquidated my debt, but there is still a generous change. For the first time in years, I did not need to count coins until the next salary. But the best of all, my dear family had no idea what I had devised. No one knew about the sale. I just waited, sitting in my corner, savoring the anticipation of the moment when they would realize that their bright plan collapses like a castle of cards. I confess, in some remote corner of consciousness, a throbbing. After all, it was my parents. And Ksayusha, pregnant, probably needing support. But then I remembered my mother's laugh as I described how they would forge my signature, and the guilt evaporated, replaced by a sharp cold. They chose to treat me like an ATM, not as a daughter. They chose to skin me instead of asking for help. Now, to become. 2 weeks passed. Silence. I started wondering if they had found another way to get money for Ksayusha or miraculously gave up on the idea. I even disappointed. I so planned that moment of revelation, their shock expression when they found that I had surpassed them. But on Tuesday morning, the phone exploded. First my mother, then my father, then Ksayusha, and again my mother. I ignored all the calls until my mother's fourth attempt. When I answered, his voice was shaking with panic. Irina, what's going on? Yesterday I was in the house with the buyers and, the padlocks are new. Did you change the locks? I spoke lime. Almost monotonous. I sold the house. Silence. Such a dense silence that you could hear the click of your grinding teeth. Then she laughed, that shrill laugh, who tries to deny the obvious. Very funny, Irina. Now seriously, what was that with the padlocks? Buyers are nervous. This is complicating everything. I'm not kidding. I sold the house last week. The new padlocks are from the new owners. If you have questions about the property, talk to them. The house is no longer mine. I hung up. I thought it was the end. As I was wrong. The phone rang again. This time, Ksayusha. I let it sound a few seconds before answering, without haste to hear your screams. But curiosity spoke louder. Irina, what the hell did you do? His voice was a mix of hysteria and despair. Mom called crying, saying absurdities about new padlocks. This is crazy. The house was sold, Ksayu. Last week. It's not funny. We plan it for months. I even chose the apartment, the furniture, hired a decorator. You cannot simply sell the house. Almost laughs. Audacity was to leave speechless. I can yes. It was my house. It did not belong to you. But we need this money, screamed. I'm pregnant, Irina. We are trying to build a family. So maybe you and your husband should get a job that allows you to play this family. You are a selfish. At least it gives the keys of the new padlocks for Mom to show the house for the buyers. We find a way. I won't give any key, Ksiusha. The house has new owners. Arrange your life alone. I hung up again. The following days were of suspicious silence. I even believed that they had finally understood the message. I should know them better. On Monday morning, it was Mikhail who called. His voice sounded embarrassed. Irina. I didn't want to bother, but the new owner of your old address came to me. A Major Sergeyev of the police. He said that over the weekend someone tried to invade the property. The alarm shot, scared the intruders, but the cameras recorded everything. A break. It was your father, Irina. I was paralyzed. My father, in fact, had tried to break into the house. Even after I warned that she was no longer mine. Even after my mother see the new padlocks with her own eyes. He was still there, as if the world revolved around his whims. Major Sergeyev asked to convey that he understands is family subject, after all, but legally, his father tried to invade a policeman's residence. Another pause. They detained him. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time it was him. The trembling voice, distressed. Irina, you need to call the police now and explain that this was a misunderstanding. Tell them that I just wanted to enter my daughter's house, that you always let me in when you wanted to. I didn't believe what I heard. Dad, I already said, the house was sold. Why did you try to invade? We didn't think you spoke seriously. We thought it was just a staging of yours, that you changed the padlocks to scare us. I said seriously. And now you have a problem by the property invasion of others. Please, Irina, just call them and solve it. Your voice broke, and then came the attack. You are an ungrateful and selfish. I hung up. I got tired of hearing manipulations, to be guilty of boundaries they crossed. The next day, the news appeared in a local VK group, defendant by trying to invade police majority residence. They did not mention the name, but described the suspect as aggressive during the arrest, with charges of contempt. Article 139 of the Penal Code. Home violation, another fine for vandalism. The journalist cited a sentence of up to 6 months. 6 months. For trying to steal my house. A week later, my mother called. I cried before I even said hello. Irina, please, we need your help. Money for a lawyer for your PA. He who turns around. It was he who got into this one. This is your fault. If you had not sold the house, none of this would have happened. I started laughing. My guilt. I sold my property so you wouldn't steal you. And somehow, I'm the villain here. You destroyed this family. Your father can go to jail. Your pregnant sister has nowhere to live. We couldn't afford the mortgage because you stopped sustaining us. You stole us. You literally planned to forge my signature to steal my house. We are family. Family helps yourself. Family does not steal family. You're an ungrateful daughter after all we did for you. What exactly did you do for me? Besides waiting for me to pay for everything while planning to betray me? She had no answer. He only kept crying, calling me selfish, cruel. I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore, he said, dry. Never call me again. I hung up. I blocked all the numbers. Mother, Dad, Ksiusha. All. A month later, it was Aunt Svetlana, my mother's sister, who called. We always got along well, she never got into family trouble, so I was surprised. I just wanted to tell you how things are with your parents and your sister. Ksiusha and Nikita moved to their parents' house. They refined the mortgage and put the property in her name so as not to lose. A sigh. You have to admit it, it was smart from her. I smiled bitter. We always underestimate it, the fragile little princess. But she was much more calculating than it appeared. And your father's process? Took 6 months conditional, plus fine for disorder. It doesn't go to jail, but you have to perform at the police station regularly. A break. And when his boss in CHOP learned of the detention, he fired him. He lost his safety job at the mall. In a way, it was even worse. The arrest would even be a relief compared to what he faces now. Aunt Svetlana sighed, crossing her arms. At his age, getting another job will not be easy. Not to mention that we had to borrow from all relatives to pay the lawyer, and then spent all the retirement savings to pay off their debts. Now, technically, they are in misery. Yeah, I said dryly. This is what happens when you decide to steal others. She was silent for a moment. Irina, I'm not saying they acted right, but it's still your parents. They stopped being my parents the moment they falsified my signature and tried to steal my house. I understand why you are angry. They don't understand. When I hung up, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and melancholy. Satisfaction because, for the first time, justice had been done. Melancholy because, deep down, I had no family anymore. But what family was that, after all? It was 7 months since I blocked the number of them all. And to be honest, I never felt so good. Sound cruel, I know. But it is the truth. For the first time in adulthood, I do not live in constant warning, waiting for the next family disaster that will suck my money. The sale of the house was the watershed. I asked the whole mortgage at once. It was $120,000 per month that they stopped leaving my account. Not to mention the $60,000 I paid for their mortgage. Suddenly I found myself with almost $200,000 free every month. I forgot what it was like to have money after paying the bills. I keep most, but I also allow myself a few pleasures. 8 years driving a beaten Solaris, which was already breathing for the exhaust pipes. I went to the AMCAT dealership and bought a semi-new Camry with 2 years of use. Nothing extravagant, but reliable. Comfortable. It was a strange feeling to enter the store and choose what I wanted, not what I could. But the best of all? Peace. I had no idea how much the family sucked me emotionally, mentally, until they disappeared from my life. Without more midnight links with emergencies that, coincidentally, and required money. Without further manipulations to make me feel guilty for being selfish. Without walking eggs not to hurt anyone. I started therapy. And it was revealing. Alla Tarasova, my psychologist, helped me see how toxic those ties were. What they did to me had a name: financial violence. From a young age, they have conditioned me to believe that my value in the family was averaged by how much I could give. You were not their daughter, Ward said in a session. It was a leg with legs that appeared at family dinners. It hurt to hear, but it was true. If we stopped to think, in almost every conversation of recent years, the subject was money. Help with the mortgage. Repair of the car. Ksayusha wedding. Medical accounts. And when I couldn't or didn't want to give what they asked, came the show, Ingle Daughter. Selfish. Don't think about the family. The therapy also made me understand that what they did with the house was not just wrong. It was a crime. Plan fraud, falsify documents, steal, and still think I was irrational for revolting myself. Normal families do not do this. Normal families do not invade homes that are not theirs. Do not forge signatures from their own children. Aunt Svetlana sometimes calls, gives news. Don't press me to make up, and I thank you for it. It only keeps me informed if I want to know. My father's conditional period ended last month, but work he failed. With dirty record, no one hires him as security, and he doesn't know how to do anything else. My mother takes extra shifts in the market, but you can't cover everything. Ksayusha had a daughter. A part of me hurt when I learned. I'm aunt now, and I probably never meet my niece. But then I remembered, she made her choice when she decided to help me steal. Actions have consequences. The most ironic. From what Aunt Svetlana tells, Ksayusha and Nikita are in crisis. Living with in-laws and a newborn, after all, is not as glamorous as they imagined. Who would say? Ksayusha complains that she feels stuck in her own house, said Aunt Svetlana in the last call. And Nikita talks about moving. But the house is in her name, and parents have nowhere to go. The situation is chaos. I confess, a part of me delights in it. They were so sure that stealing my house would solve all the problems. Ksayusha would win the dream apartment, The parents would be generous grandparents, and I, as always, would swallow dry. Instead, Xiusha is locked with her parents and a baby crying. My father lost his job and was almost arrested. Everyone sank. And me. No debt. With a good car. Making enough money for, next year, finally taking a decent vacation. Sometimes I wonder if I should feel guilty. After all, they are my parents. My sister. But then I remember them laughing as they planned to falsify my signature. Of the absolute certainty that I would give in, as always. Of the years they treated me as a bank account, not as a daughter. No. I don't feel guilty. I feel free. I even think about buying another house in a while. Nothing in the mountains, something closer to work. Perhaps a little house in Nova Moscow, with a piece of land. I always wanted to try to plant my own vegetables, but before I couldn't afford a property with space. It's funny how life changes. 6 months ago, I had been stressed, I could barely close the accounts, drowned in family dramas. Today, I plan a garden. A vacation. I sleep better. As better. I hope for the weekend with joy, not afraid of the next disaster that will play in my lap. Even at work they noticed the difference. "You're happier, Irina," said Genya the other day. Quieter. When he asked what he had changed, I only answered. I simplified my life. I cut what intoxicated me. I didn't get in detail. Who would believe this story? The most difficult is the commemorative dates. Before, I feared them. Meant spending on gifts for people who never. They were grateful. Now, it's just empty days. My birthday this year I spent alone. And it was good. New Year's Eve was more complicated. I volunteered at a hot meal distribution station. I helped serve soup for those who really needed. It was better than pretending harmony with those who just wanted my money. I know what they will say, you should try to reconcile, especially now that you have a niece. But they didn't learn anything. From what Aunt Svetlana tells, I'm still the villain of history. The ungrateful daughter who did not let her own home. Until they assume what they did, there is nothing to rebuild. And to be frank, I don't want to. I like my life now. I like to control my money without the anxiety of knowing what the next crisis will push me. I like to plan my future instead of saving others from the traps they themselves created. I take a deep breath. The head is light. The budget, clean. And that, perhaps, is the best thing that has ever happened to me.